Time to talk about everybody's favorite rookie position, wide receivers. We'll talk about our top 12 here on today's episode. Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry, and we're back with another rookie breakdown. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the last couple of episodes. We went through the quarterbacks and the running backs. The quarterbacks was an interesting one. We recorded that one before the Senior Bowl, and then funnily enough, some of the stuff we talked about in that one came true from the Senior Bowl, which was
that's very true.
Kind of ironic. I do think it's going to be very interesting to see how that really shakes out and how that breaks down over time. But, I just thought the funniest one was the Joe Milton pass straight into the
that was horrible pass. Horrible.
The dude
pass
has the strongest arm in the entire draft class.
Strongest arm alive. He just digs it in the dirt. It's poetic. It is poetic.
That was great. So there's a lot of football going on right now. I know it feels like kind of the dead period, the dead zone with the Super Bowl coming up. And, there's not a lot to really be talking about before the NFL free agency, but there's still plenty. In just a couple of weeks, there's going to be the NFL Combine or the Combine. They're going to have all the prospects out there. Most of you guys already know this, but anybody new to football, maybe this is your first year really paying attention to the offseason. NFL Combine is going to be a big event here in the next couple of weeks. That's going to really tell us how these guys match up athletically, and that's where it's going to be great for our rankings. It's going to really help to solidify things a little bit before the actual NFL draft and then the draft. And free agency is coming up. Lots of people on the potential chopping block. It's going to be a fun time for sure. So
it's going to be wild.
Yeah. I'm excited. Who's going to be the next dude? This draft is going to be crazy. And, we'll do a whole draft podcast eventually, but there's so many teams that need a quarterback, and there's only maybe, it depends what you think about Bo Nix, but 3 to 4 really solid guys in this draft. There's not enough quarterbacks out there, man. There's enough.
There's definitely not.
That's where a lot of value can be had. And, for Dynasty, this is not on today's topic, but that is where a lot of the value can be had. Nobody wanted Baker Mayfield last year in Dynasty, and he ended up being a top 12 Dynasty QB. Sometimes it's gross. You got to plug your nose and eat your vegetables. But, this is where a lot of money can be made. So that said, before we get to that, we're going to go through these wide receivers and kind of give you our initial takes on them, because the whole reason, and a lot of people are like, oh, why do you put the prospects out so early? They haven't even been drafted yet. Yeah, but I don't want to be swayed by draft capital only. There's a lot of people out there. I've already heard it on a lot of podcasts that, draft capital is all that matters. If he's a fourth rounder, if he's the first pick of the fourth round instead of the last pick of the third round, he's a bust. It's like, these arguments are dumb, man. Let's just draft good players. How about that? Amon-Ra St. Brown was a fourth round pick, and oh my gosh, he's a top 5 dynasty wide receiver right now. Man, it's almost like people miss on this stuff, right? And NFL teams are no better. What's the guy, the Rams second round pick, Tutu Atwell. The Rams took Tutu Atwell in the second round. Draft capital does not mean what it used to mean, guys. It does not. I get it. Your sample sizes are 4 players. It doesn't mean it's correlation does not equal causation, guys. All right. But that said, before we get into today's rankings, Dale, how are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about, all these wide receivers today, and, it's a really good bunch. It's really exciting. It's to talk about football, in a little bit different way, we are getting a Super Bowl, and, it's a Super Bowl week, and it kind of feels things die down until the Combine, but, we are just trying to ramp stuff up a little bit, just to keep some of the dynasty momentum going.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we're going to be putting out content all off season long. So, we're going to try and keep them shorter. We have a tendency to kind of ramble. We like to talk about these guys a lot. There's a lot of stuff we like to talk about, but we're going to try and keep them shorter so that you guys can just, throw us on at the gym or on your way to work or whatever, and get hopefully a nice little piece of information in each one of these episodes. So if you find these episodes helpful, if you have any comments or anything like that, please let us know over on YouTube, over on Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere that the podcast is found. Leave a comment. If you can, subscribe to the channel so you get all of our content that's going to be coming out over the next couple of weeks. And if you can like the video while you're there, it just helps promote it out there to more people. And it just helps us. So you helping us helps you, and everybody wins that way. And if you want to, you can also follow us over on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't really care. Dude, it's always going to be Twitter to me. It just will always be
absolutely.
Twitter.
Absolutely.
Just like what's Facebook is like Meta or something. I don't know. It's Facebook. Well, it's just Facebook, right? But you can follow us over on X at TDC_Calvin for myself, at Dynasty_Dale for my co-host here, and at FF After Dark for the podcast. And again, hit us up with any trade questions, anything like that. This is the funnest time of the year. Again, this is where the most money can be made. So if you have any questions, hit us up and we're happy to kind of walk you through it. And trust me, I will not hold back. I'm not going to just tell you, oh, you're great and you're awesome. I will question some of your decisions at times, guys.
Right.
So if you want an honest answer, come to me and I will be happy to give you my honest opinion. But all right, enough about that. Let's get into the wide receivers here today. And the funny thing is, Dale and I were kind of comparing our lists a little bit before. We didn't really share many thoughts on the. We've talked about a lot of these players in the last couple of months anyway, with our initial preview to these players months ago. A lot of it hasn't changed too much from then, but the funniest thing was we have the exact same players in our top 12, just in wildly different orders for most of them. So we're going to get into it and it's going to be a fun discussion, but I think we can start with the top two. And there's not a lot of discussion to be had about these two guys. Marvin Harrison Jr. is both of our number one. Malik Nabers is both of our number two. If it wasn't for Marv, Malik would be my number one.
Yep.
He's extremely good, and Marv is just better. Marv is just really freaking good, man. He's going to be a top 4 pick for a reason. I know a lot of people are projecting Malik Nabers to be a top 5 pick. And personally, I don't see it. The gap between Marv and Malik is much larger personally than the gap between Nabers and Odunze. And, with all the top tackles and Brock Bowers and all these other players, quarterbacks, I would be shocked if Malik Nabers goes top 5, but a lot of people are fans of putting him up there, so we'll see where he ultimately falls. But these two are just studs. What are your thoughts on these top two?
They are. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think the gap between, I kind of am on the opposite spectrum a little bit. That I kind of feel that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Nabers are in, like, I mean, I have them in a tier each of their own.
Okay.
And I mean, I view them that they're their own entity, and then the other guys are just kind of they're all kind of stacked together.
Right.
I mean, a lot of these guys, because I mean, just like you said in the beginning, like we have all the same 12 guys in the top 12, but they're all in different spots. So,
right.
With Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he just has that elite route running. Everything is just effortless for him. I had the privilege of watching him a lot because, I'm a Ohio State fan, unfortunately. So, I got to watch a lot of them, and it looked effortless against even the best DBs in the country. So I really expect him to do a lot of the same. I didn't really get to watch a lot of LSU tape this year, during the college football season, but I do know Nabers is that guy. I think he has. I still think he's going to get picked in the top 10. I kind of think I really doubt he gets past the Bears, in my opinion, at 9. But I still think he's very elite.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually watched a lot, and I've been on Malik Nabers. We did a preview last summer for these guys, and at the time, nobody was on Malik Nabers. I think he was like the wide receiver 6 on most boards, and I was like, dude, this guy is good, man. Like, he is extremely good. And, a year later, everyone, what is it, the award that he won, the Bolitnikoff Award for wide receivers? Like, he's just an
He
insanely.
he did not win that.
He
That
didn't?
was Marvin Harrison Jr. won
Oh,
that
that's
award this
right.
year.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
They said that he should have won. That's what I remember reading.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
whatever.
yeah.
but yeah, Malik Nabers is extremely good, and he's going to make a NFL franchise very, very happy for sure.
I agree.
All right, let's go to our next tier, because I think we both, I have Rome in the same tier as Nabers, but you seem to have these two players as a same tier, but we have them flip-flopped, right? I have Brian Thomas in the next tier, but you have Brian Thomas and Rome kind of in the same grouping here. Why do you like Brian Thomas? You just a big LSU fan all of a sudden?
Not really, but I think he has. Well, like, he's just a beast of a human being.
That's true.
Personally, like, he's 6'4", he's 205. I mean, it's a slimmer build for how tall he is personally, but I don't really care about that. Like, he's a physical freak. I just feel that I just feel that SEC football is different than Pac-12 football in just the physicality of it. It just is. I think it helped that these guys. I think it helped that Rome and Brian Thomas both played with Heisman caliber quarterbacks.
Right.
But I just feel I feel like Brian Thomas is that guy. So
he's good.
With
he's
his ball
very,
tracking,
very good.
his ball tracking skills, he's really good in the red zone. He's a fairly physical guy. So, I think I feel better about that compared to Rome, where I kind of feel Rome had a lot more easier touchdowns, I should say, throughout the year. It felt a little bit effortless to him.
Sure.
So, I don't think he's as aggressive, at the catch point, compared to I feel Brian Thomas would be is a little bit more, but I will say for Odunze that he really does have those smooth routes. He's kind of like the Chris Olave kind of of a couple years ago.
Right.
He's really dependable, but I wouldn't be. I mean, I'm probably gonna flip flop these guys throughout this
times,
this off
Yep.
season. So I'm just kind of going on how I kind of feel about it right now, and I kind of feel that Brian Thomas is gaining a lot of momentum, and I think he's going to test really well at the combine, and I think that's going to really help him in his draft stock.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because last time LSU had two top tier wide receivers coming out, it was Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, right?
Jamar Chase.
And I wonder if it's the same thing where Malik Nabers was so good this year that it kind of masked Brian Thomas and how good he was as well. And I'm with you 100%. It would not shock me if you told me in 3 years' time that Brian Thomas was the best wide receiver in this draft class. I wouldn't be shocked. Like he's very,
really.
very good. I'd be a little shocked because Marv is up there, but he's extremely, extremely talented. And that's what I love the most about this class. Brian Thomas, you said it already, 6'4", 205, give or take. We'll see what he weighs in at the combine. Rome Odunze though, 6'3", 201. Like these are big guys, and it is a class for size, and I love it because there's so many teams that need these guys. Just like they need the quarterbacks, the wide receivers they are in dire need, right? Look at the Patriots. We could use, like, there's a real talk about them going Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3 overall, just because of how bad our offense is. We don't even have a number one wide receiver. We could get any guys in the top 5. We won't be able to get any of them probably, right? But my top 5, we could get any of them, and they'd be an instant number 1 on our team. Instant, right? The Giants are the same way. The Cardinals, Hollywood Brown is a free agent, but you add Marvin Harrison to that team, and, he's instantly the number 1 on that team. I think Malik Nabers or Rome Odunze could even be the number 1 on that team as well. Like, there's a lot of teams in the NFL that just need that guy, and that's what this class can do for you, and that's why I'm so excited for it. But getting back to Rome Odunze and why I like him a little bit more than Brian Thomas, I do think, like you said, he's kind of more of a Chris Olave type of style, but he's not really he's not the guy that the I'm going to cook you on the line of scrimmage. He's not going to, juke you out of your shoes, essentially, right? But he is just the most dependable guy that I felt in this entire draft class for these lower guys, right? Like obviously Marvin, Malik are the most dependable. They're the most talented as well. But Rome with that offense was just fun to watch. Like he was always there for Penix, and it was just, Mr. Reliable for him. And I think that it was, you're saying, well, he had a lot of easy touchdowns. I think he manufactured a lot of those touchdowns with how well he was playing.
Very fair.
It's chicken or egg, right? But for me, I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, he's so much better than these cornerbacks. And he's working it open. And Michael Penix is just, taking advantage of that essentially. And that's where I think that he was able to do that a little bit more subtly versus some of these other guys. But yeah, I like Rome Odunze, and again, this is a little bit of a splitting hairs, but again, the gap between him and Nabers, I think, is a lot smaller than a lot of people think. But that's my opinion. Mm-hmm. So obviously, two really, really good players, and they're definitely first round picks. So I have all these guys as top 8, like Superflex picks. If you're not in Superflex, they're probably top 4.
Yeah,
I'm probably taking Caleb over Brian Thomas, to be honest. But
I agree. I agree.
Bowers and Thomas is a real discussion for me. Like I'm taking Odunze if I need a wide receiver over Bowers every day of the week. But that's right where we're at. Like these guys are top 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 in a non-Superflex, pretty much, right? Caleb Williams gets interesting in there versus Brian Thomas, but these guys are extremely good. Now, this is where going into our next tier, and I know the next guy, your number 5 is in the same tier as Brian Thomas and Rome Odunze. I actually have a tier break. I have Marv as my tier 1, Malik Nabers, Rome Odunze as my 2, Brian Thomas, Roman Wilson, and Troy Franklin are in my tier 3. You have Troy Franklin with Rome and Thomas, right?
Yep.
Is that the end of your tier here?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay. So you can talk about Troy Franklin, and then I'll kind of give my Roman Wilson take and why I have him one slot ahead of Troy Franklin here. So let's hear your thoughts on Troy.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing with Troy Franklin out of Oregon. I'll just say this. I'll say a simple phrase: speed kills. Yes. And this guy is fast. He flies, and I think that's where the league is. I mean, it's been heading there for the past few years, having these physical freak guys. Mm-hmm. He's 6'3". He is much lighter. Like he has a he's like it says on
it's like 180,
what
right?
I'm looking at. Yeah, it's 187. But I'm very interested to see what he weighs at the combine. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to tell us be more telling. I don't ever trust the colleges with heights and weights. We've been fooled by that too many times. Right. But this guy can fly. He's really good in man coverage because he's faster than most DBs. I think his speed will be comparable to some DBs, but I think he's a burner. He's physical. He's versatile. Like he's able to play in the slot, outside. He's really explosive. He's good at the high point of the ball, catching it. So, I think the biggest knock on him is his size. If he was, like 6'3", 210, I think we would feel much differently about Franklin.
Right. And or even like 195. Like he doesn't have to be thick, but he is a little thin. And there's another guy a little bit further down. He's your next wide receiver, actually. So we'll kind of tease that here. But I was just looking. Everybody that we have in the top 12, both of us, is over 6 foot tall in this draft class. Yeah. The weights range a little bit there, but this guy and your next guy are the lightest guys in this entire class. Oh. They're fast. They're extremely fast, but that's the one thing with Troy Franklin. I do wish he was a little bit more physical. I do feel like that's a little bit of a weakness in his game. Extremely fast, though. And I think that if you can put him in the right system, it's going to be very good. I know a lot of people are like, oh, just put him on the Chiefs or put him on whatever top, playoff team you want to. I don't think he's the catch-all wide receiver that can go to any team and succeed. I do think that he's going to need a certain system to build around his strengths. to kind of mask some of his weaknesses a little bit. And I think that he's a little bit more landing spot dependent than the other guys that I have in my top 5. And that's why I'm down a little bit on Troy
Hmm.
Franklin.
Sure.
Personally, I still have him in the same tier as Brian Thomas and Roman Wilson, but I do think that he's just a little bit more landing spot dependent on him. If he goes to a good landing spot, though, I have no concerns with him whatsoever. I do think that he can be fantasy viable, but it scares me a little bit. All these people are kind of crowning him already. Oh, he's the number 4 guy guaranteed, and it's like I don't know if he is, guys. Like
No, no, he's
I think
not.
Brian Thomas is much better, and he can go anywhere and succeed, kind of thing. So, no, I like Troy Franklin, I really do, but I do wish he was a little bit bigger. We'll see what the combine does, and maybe he can kind of. A lot of these guys, they play in college. They don't really have a nutritionist or any of this stuff, and after their last senior when they declare for the draft, or at their last season, not senior, they go to these training facilities and prep for the combine, and they put on a lot of weight and muscle and everything. Like who was it? Zay Flowers put on 10 pounds of muscle
Yeah,
last year
yeah,
just for the combine. It was like he
yep.
weighed in at 190 at his size, which was massive,
Yeah,
just
it
in
was
terms
for
of,
him. Yeah.
and he was still as explosive and everything like that. So we'll see what Troy Franklin kind of comes in at, but yeah, he's the only reason why is he is a little bit smaller, and that scares me a little bit. But Roman Wilson, I want to talk about him really quickly. He's down at 11 for you, my
Hmm.
number 5. And, I maybe this is a little bit of bias because we're coming off the Senior Bowl and everything, but he was just on fire the entire week
He
of
was.
the
He
Senior
he
Bowl.
he he definitely was. I agree. I agree.
Everyone was talking on Twitter. If you're following other dynasty analysts, uncoverable. Roman Wilson was uncoverable. And, I've always liked Roman Wilson this last season, but the one thing that I don't love is it was the Michigan offense. Like the Michigan offense sucks. And, I, after going back and kind of rethinking it with my dislike of JJ McCarthy, I think that this offense actually held Roman Wilson back, and he was good in this offense. Like he was the number 1 by far for the Michigan offense.
Hmm.
And he's someone that I think can be a possession receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown, for example, and he will thrive in the NFL. But again, he's a little bit more landing spot dependent than Brian Thomas, for
Yep.
example. But I think his skill set can thrive anywhere. He's not the burner type of guy. He's the possession type where, you get him 8 catches a game and he'll, 8 catches for 105, 120 yards, whatever it is. I think that could definitely be in his wheelhouse. And, like an old school Michael Thomas is kind of what he reminds me of a little bit. And, without just running slants, right?
Right.
But yeah, Roman Wilson just feels like the most possession type of wide receiver in this top grouping that I think the Michigan offense just held him back massively. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, what are your thoughts
I
on Roman?
I agree with all of I agree with what you're saying, and I feel he's going to succeed as long as there's not a lot of press coverage. I think he did struggle with that a little bit last year. Um, I will say that he has very quick feet, which is gonna it's definitely gonna help in the NFL. But I don't think he has. I think he doesn't have as good of hands as what people think he does. I mean that could be because of JJ McCarthy. It could be because he's trying to fight for everything he has because he knows the offense is kind of is very methodical. I
Right.
don't really see him a big run after the catch guy. I don't. I mean, I don't. I just I'm not as excited. I mean, I'm excited about him, but I don't. I see the hype. I see it, but also Senior Bowl tape. Like you're going against. It's the upper echelon of college football players, but you're going against college players. So it's much different in the NFL, and I think there's going to be some growing pains with him. I think he. I think with him, he's not always the best on contested catches. Like he's
Sure.
often having what what we can call like, it's these double catches where he's still catching it, but you know, I feel more often than not, in the NFL that's going to be you know, a deflected pass. So, I like him and I see all of the things. I'm just not a believer as much of a believer as you are.
Yeah, and that's again, draft capital will kind of tell us what the NFL thinks of this
Absolutely.
guy. But
Yes.
the whole point why we're doing this early is so that we can not be completely swayed by the draft capital argument. I believe in the
Yep.
talent of this guy, but we'll see. He goes in the 7th round. Okay, maybe I'm wrong there on that one, but I don't
Yeah.
see it. I think he's going to be an early 2nd round pick, in my opinion. Just with the way this draft class and this draft is going to fall, I would not be shocked if Roman Wilson is an early 2nd round pick for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can see him being a day two pick. I think
Yeah,
you sometimes overinflate the picks sometime based on dynasty value or based on fantasy football value.
maybe.
So
I mean, I don't
I
know.
I I I I, I feel you do, but
Well,
I do see him being a day two pick.
sure. No, and
Yeah. Yep.
round 2 is day 2, Dale. All right, all
I
right, all
know
right.
that. Hey,
No,
no, I don't disagree
no.
with it.
It-
I don't disagree.
I've just
But
noticed that the trend of the NFL the last couple of years is if they don't get these wide receivers in round 1, they like trade up. Like look at Laporta and Michael Mayer last year, right? And Will
yeah,
Levis. And it
yeah,
doesn't necessarily have to be wide receivers, but in a good wide receiver, last year wasn't really a great wide receiver class, but in a good wide receiver class, it's like at the start of the 2nd round, it's like, all right, let's trade up as high as we can just to go and get some of these guys if
right.
we still believe in the talent. So again, I believe in the talent. I could see that, but I don't think he's worth a first to be fair.
No,
But
no, he's not at all.
I think he's worth a decent second. So we'll see. But all right, next tier of guys here. I have a big tier, and I think you've broken it up into 2 tiers for the last one. But we'll just kind of
Yeah.
name all these guys, talk about them a little bit here, and we'll just kind of break them down a little bit here. 7 for me is Jalen Polk, 8 Adonai Mitchell, 9 Xavier Worthy, 10 Keon Coleman, 11 Lad McConkey, and 12 Jermaine Burton. On the flip side for you, Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey, Adonai Mitchell at 8, Jermaine Burton at 9, Jalen Polk at 10, and I think you have a tier break here, right, at 11, Roman Wilson
Yep.
and Keon Coleman in your next tier after that. So
Yep.
Xavier Worthy is your 6. He's my 9. My only fear is he's a little tiny, but he's extremely fast.
Yep.
I'm not sure he's the best. Like I have Adonai Mitchell 1 spot ahead of him at 8.
Sure.
And
Yep.
I think that Adonai Mitchell might actually be the better wide receiver of these two, but both Texas wide receivers. Why do you love Worthy more than Adonai Mitchell? I guess is a good way to start.
Based on Troy Franklin's speed kills, and this guy's a playmaker. I really like in any draft, I like drafting playmakers,
Sure.
and I feel that Worthy's done that. I know the past couple years haven't been as great, but I think there's been a little bit more. The Texas offense has gotten it's changed a little bit where like he doesn't have to be the number one guy all the time.
Right.
I feel his speed makes him really dangerous. He has pretty smooth routes. He has really good hands and I think that's extremely valuable. With how the league is right now. And I can see him being a perfect slot guy. Like a Zay Flowers, just a little bit taller.
I see him more
You
as
know,
of an outside guy, but and you're
yeah.
talking Worthy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's for me, he's like a Devonta Smith build, and that's what scares me a little bit because we've seen, people are going to roast me on here, but Devonta Smith is not what people wanted him to be. And you can tell me, oh, he's been fine for the NFL. Yeah, he has. He's been fine for fantasy.
I think he's been at least what my expectations were for him.
I don't know, dude. He won the Heisman. People had very high expectations for him coming out.
Personally, the Heisman doesn't mean a lot to me.
I agree.
Like college awards don't mean as much
I
to me
agree.
because I feel they're regional based and stuff like that. But that's
Right.
But that's beside the
Fair.
point.
That's fair.
I think for Worthy though, I really like his breakout age. I like all of his production, and
Sure.
I know that worries some people that he stayed another year, stuff like that. But like we got
going
worried about that.
They were going for the title. Like some of these
Yeah,
guys,
yeah,
they get
yeah.
NIL has
Yeah.
changed the game on this so
It's
much too.
changed the dynamic a lot. So, I'm not worried about him staying. I'm not worried about a little bit of the dip of production. I still think he's great and he's going to do well in the NFL.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Again, hopefully he can beef up a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
dude, knock off 1/10 of your, of your 40 time. You're still gonna be flying. Like if you run a
yeah,
4.35, who cares, man? And you weigh
yeah,
in at 185, like nobody's gonna care, right? But
yeah,
yeah, 164, that just scares me a little bit. Again, we'll see what the NFL thinks of him, but it again just gives me Devonta Smith fears, where Devonta Smith without the Heisman, essentially. But Adonai Mitchell, again, his teammate, a little bit bigger, 6'3", 190.
mhm,
He's more of the every down type of guy, where Worthy was more of the down the field type of down the field threat, where middle to deep was Worthy's territory, and kind of underneath was Mitchell. I like that a little bit more. I think it just is easier. It's more translatable to the NFL than what
that's
Worthy
fair.
does. When all the corners in the NFL run 4.3s too, it's just tough, right? So yeah, I think that Worthy can shine, but it's going to take a little bit more work and luck on that end.
Yeah,
But
I kind of feel the I kind of feel that with Worthy, he's a better route runner than Mitchell. But
that's
I think
fair.
I think that's with experience.
Right. Right.
I mean that I think that's the biggest thing is I value that, and if in where we're at in our rankings, I kind of feel Mitchell and Devonta Smith are no, not Mitchell. Worthy and Devonta Smith are a little. We can view them differently because we had Devonta Smith. I know a lot of people had him as as a number one wide receiver coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Jalen Waddle came out that same year. I think that's
Yeah, that was
I think
Jamar Chase.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was that, but he was still like a top three guy compared to
Yeah.
where we're at. It's later in the first round, and those picks are a little bit more of a coin flip, anyways.
Oh yeah, I don't
Yeah,
anticipate Xavier Worthy being a first round pick, to be honest with you.
right. I
Um,
agree.
or Donnie Mitchell. Like these are early second rounders in fantasy, and probably the NFL. Like they're probably both second, or they're day two picks for sure. I could see Worthy going like in the third, but I could see Donnie Mitchell going in the third too. Like literally, I could see
Right,
either one of these guys going higher. It does not matter.
right.
But we'll see. We'll see again what the combine has for both of these guys. That's going to break down a lot of it, and it's going to show us a little bit more of the athleticism of these guys than what we've kind of seen just on tape, right? So, number 7 for me was Jalen Polk. You have Lad McConkey. I love Lad, but I cannot put him up that high, man. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Jalen Polk,
It's the big thing on Lad for me is his route running.
he is
I
so
really
good. He's like Julian Edelman,
yeah, yes.
Wes
Well,
Welker, whoever you want to call him, whatever.
yeah.
That's what he is.
Yeah,
He's
what
the
other
white slot wide receiver that gets
yes,
open.
I knew you were gonna say that. So, yeah, yeah, I mean that's what I like in a receiver is route running.
Yeah. Yep.
If they're able to run these smooth routes in college, that definitely translates to the NFL.
Right. And that's where, I love Lad McConkey, but the guys I have above him, I think have higher ceilings than Lad McConkey.
That's fair.
Like I
That's
don't
fair.
think the Lad McConkey types for fantasy football are as prevalent in the NFL. Like Lad McConkey for
Yeah.
me comes in as a dedicated slot guy, right? And
He,
that can be good.
yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I kind of view him like Hunter Renfro.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's a better Hunter
And
Renfro for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, and I would love having that in fantasy personally.
Right.
I mean, when he was, for that couple year stretch, I
Right.
should say.
If he goes somewhere and they actually use him, like Lad McConkey can be very, very good. But at the same time, he can be Hunter Renfro, where after one good year, he's completely worthless for fantasy too. So, I have no problem taking a stab on him, like in the late second, early third of your rookie drafts. But just yeah, I love Lad McConkey. He is so good, and I want him to go. Like if he could be a high day two pick, that'd be so good for.
Yeah.
I'd be so happy for this kid. But on the flip side, Jalen Polk, who I have at 7, teammate to Rome Odunze for this Washington team that was just absolutely dominant. Now, ironically, this is going to be the exact same argument that I have against Ladd for Jalen Polk, but we see these guys completely opposite. You have Jalen Polk at 10, I have him at 7. I think Jalen Polk is a better slot receiver than like Ladd McConkey. I think Jalen Polk comes into the NFL as a slot receiver that kind of plays more along the lines of like a CeeDee Lamb or a Amon-Ra St. Brown, where they have in and out, where Jalen Polk can go on the outside, but he can also go in the slot, and I think he can cook people. Like, Rome Odunze is not the masterclass, like, break your ankles. I think Jalen Polk has a little bit more of that get off the line than Odunze does. He just wasn't as proficient as Odunze was. Odunze was the number one in this offense, obviously, right? But Jalen Polk is extremely good, and I think he was being slept on a little bit by not being able to be featured in this offense over Odunze. And I think Jalen Polk has the potential to be a massive sleeper for a lot of teams out there. Again, I think that he would be a little bit better if you started him off in the slot and kind of moved him in and out. But, with his size and his skill set, there's no reason why you couldn't, move him in and out. He's 6'2", 204. He's not like a tiny guy, but I think that he could be a very good slot wide receiver for the NFL as well.
And I hear that. I don't feel Polk is as refined as other players that I have above him.
Sure.
So I think some of that inexperience, and that that it's going to take time for him to catch up to where some of these guys are, and
Sure.
I think that's going to hurt his value.
Fair enough. All right. The next guy on your list is Jermaine Burton, number 9. I have him at 12. The only problem with Jermaine Burton was he was on this Alabama offense, which was terrible this year.
It was clunky. It was clunky.
Yeah,
is a nice way to put it.
I have no idea how to rank him because I like him.
This dude's
a
fast.
Lot.
This dude's fast, and he made Jalen Milroe look really good.
Right. But he just didn't have a ton of stats.
Yes,
it was weird.
But for the clips I saw of him, he mossed a lot of people and made a lot of people look bad. So, I feel he's going to go to a place where, he's going to have better quarterback play. He's already able to win some of those. It's those 50-50 balls. So,
right.
That's why I like him, but I think 2 with him, he lacks, it's the route running, but I feel that's because of the offense that they played. It was a lot of backyard football,
right,
with him the past couple of years.
Yeah, Alabama's not been what it once was, and
it's beautiful, but that's beside the point. But
right, everyone's tired of Alabama, but. Yeah, it's hard for me to evaluate him because he is a senior. He's a little bit older as well. Nothing wrong with that, but you would like to see a little bit more of a breakout before this, and he went all over the place as well. Played for Georgia, ended up transferring out of there. For me, it's just hard. Like, I like kind of what I see on tape, but at the same time, like, he does not have a ton of stats to go with it. So. Is he just not as good, and that's why they did decide not to use him as much, or is he a sleeper? It's hard for me to tell, and he's the one guy. The reason why I have him at 12 is I am going to let the NFL tell me what they think about this guy.
Yeah.
If they draft him in the top 4 rounds, I'll buy in. But if he's like 5th or later, I'm probably gonna be out on it. So we'll see what the NFL kind of does, but. Yeah, he's just a very hard prospect to kind of evaluate for me. All right, last guy for both of us is going to be Keon Coleman. I have him at 10. You have him at 12.
Yep.
Tell me about Keon.
There's a lot of people that love Keon Coleman. He's one of the wide receivers out of Florida State.
Right.
He's your prototypical size. He's 6'4", 215.
He's a big boy.
He is a big boy, and I don't think he's I think he's very clunky, and he does have some good ball skills, but he played in an offense where I kind of and he played in a conference that does not have a lot of elite defensive backs. I think with a lot with him, I kind of feel he's my big red flag. I personally I don't think I'll be drafting Keon Coleman. I feel he's a trap in my opinion. I don't feel he's as good of a route runner. There's some concerns about his commitment to on the field.
Right.
I don't think he's very technical. He's kind of stiff a little bit.
Yeah, he
So
reminds me
I
of Harrison Butker. No, who was the I'm talking about the he played changed to tight end. It was the year that we went to the combine, the DK year.
Oh, it was the quarterback. It was Tyree Jackson, I think.
No, no, Hakeem Butler.
Oh, yeah.
Hakeem
Yeah.
Butler. Remember
Yeah.
we were Dale and I were at the combine a
Yes.
few years ago with Hakeem Butler in that draft class, and we
Yep.
were this guy was being hyped up like crazy, like, oh, he's a big
He
body dude.
was.
We watched him
He
run
was
the drills
he
on the
was he
field, and it
was
was like watching
stiff.
a Boeing 747 turn on a
Uh-huh.
runway. It was like dude
Uh-huh.
had no mobility
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that with Keon Coleman. He doesn't have a ton of stats. He had 50 catches this last year for 658 yards, but he's a touchdown monster at 11 touchdowns, 19 touchdowns on 100 catches is pretty crazy.
It is. It is.
1,500 yards.
And I see it. I see all of the things are pointing him to be a high-end wide receiver,
Yep.
but I feel there's a lot of technical issues that he needs to clear up.
Oh yeah.
In that I really think we need to see him do all the drills at the combine to really show some of the
He's not doing three cone. I
if
can promise you that.
yes, yeah, he's would be horrible at three cone. Yeah, I
To
agree.
be fair, though, DK Metcalf was also horrible at three cone, and
Oh, he
people were
was
like roasting him.
atrocious.
He's
He was
fine for
atrocious.
the NFL, right? But
Yes,
it's just,
yes. Yeah.
um, I do think that he's not terrible. He's not slow or anything like that. His 40 is going to be
No.
very interesting to see.
Yep.
Like if he can get around like 4.5, if he runs like a 4.6, that's going to be the nail in the coffin for him. But
Yeah.
yeah, the only reason I have him at 10 versus your 12, right? We kind of have him flipped. I think the traits are there. If he can
Yeah.
if he can show that athletic mastery in the combine, then he's going to jump up boards just because
Yeah,
of the
I
combine.
I I agree with that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I need to see him at the combine and do some of those and do some of those technical drills.
Right. Like he'll
Yeah.
probably jump if he can show explosion like with the what's that one called? Sorry guys, I'm a little sick, so my brain is a little fried today.
I think there's like a 10-yard shuffle
No,
and
not
stuff
the
like
10-yard
that.
shuffle, the vertical jump, the
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
one where you hit the bars and you measure how
Yeah.
high you can
Yeah.
jump and everything. Like if he can get a decent number on that, he's a big dude. So big
Yeah.
dudes typically actually are worse at that drill because there's so much more mass you have to explode up, right? But
Yeah.
if he can do well at that one and maybe he has a good 40 showing a little bit more of that explosion and that just speed and everything, that's where it's going to really push him up. So we'll see what Keon Coleman can have and can do at the combine. But yeah, he's going to be an interesting one to watch for sure. So
Definitely.
all right, we're going to wrap it up here because I am getting sick and I am dying. So thank you guys for joining us. Let us know who we missed out on. I know there's a few names that I wanted to kind of just quickly shout out here, and with wide receivers, it's a good class, but the few names that didn't make the top 12 that people will either crucify us for or be happy that we left them off. But Tez Walker at the Senior Bowl had a rough week, dropped
was rough.
a lot
Yeah.
of passes. Xavier
Yeah.
Leggett had a up and down week, wasn't great, wasn't terrible at the Senior Bowl. Brendan Rice was another one at the Senior Bowl who isn't as what we kind of hoped for. Johnny
Yeah.
Wilson went to the Senior Bowl. He was someone that there's talk about him transitioning to tight end already.
He's a giant human
He's
being.
240 pounds, 6'6". Like he's a massive wide receiver.
Yes.
I still
He's
like
massive.
him. I like
I
him.
do too. I do too.
And then Malachi Corley. These are guys that, we'll see what the combine ultimately has, but it's a deep class for sure at wide receiver. Those are a few guys that did not make our top 12. They're right there on the fringes, though. So make a case for us in the comments down below why you think that they should be top 12. Or, again, let us know who we missed or who you think we're idiots about, and we'll be happy to discuss. But
absolutely.
That said, Dale, any last thoughts?
Send it on home.
All right. Thank you guys again so much for listening to this episode. You can follow us one last time on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, at FFAfterdark, and at Dynasty_Dale. Podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Google, Apple, anywhere that podcasts, Rumble, anywhere the podcasts are really found. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you can hear all of our content coming up. We appreciate you guys so much, and I am going to get out of here because I am tired of being sick. And last time, if you're on YouTube, I just threw up the final top 12 so you can see it one final time, and let us know your thoughts down below. But until next time, thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to have the tight ends next time. So until then, have a good night.
And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?